Then Morgoth laughed, and he said, "Death you may yet crave of me as a boon." Then he took Húrin to Haud in Nirnaeth, and it was then new built, and the reek of death was upon it. And Morgoth set Húrin upon its top, and bade him look west toward Hithlum, and think of his wife and son and other kin, "For they dwell now in my realm," said Morgoth, "and they are at my mercy." "You have none," answered Húrin, "but you will not come at Turgon through them, for they do not know his secrets." Hey there, gang. I'm Danny J.
And I'm Joel N.
I'm Trevor D.
And together we are...
Keep on Tolkien.
Yes, we are. Woo, woo.
Get it. Believe it.
Yes. Welcome back, gang.
Welcome to episode 105.
105. Yeah, this is our fifth episode in our how long we don't really know series.
It is an ever-evolving series.
The Never-Ending Story, the great movie that I recently watched for the first time. We are continuing this 100th episode celebration where we go back and we redo the chief tales of the Elder Days.
Yeah, you might as well consider this episode 100 part 5.
Part
and
5.
not 105.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, because, we covered these forever ago, originally, back in our very first season when we had no idea what we were doing.
Really no idea. Yeah, we knew nothing about podcasting. We just like to talk about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and also some of these independent books on each of these stories hadn't been published yet.
Right, which I didn't actually think of until just now, which makes me feel like less of a hack for doing
the Fall
this.
of Gondolin hadn't been published.
Yeah.
I don't even think that Beren Lúthien had been published back in 2017. I'd have to double check
I don't think
that.
it did. No, I don't think it had been.
But anyway, so we are very excited to be going over these again, and today we'll be getting into the second of these great tales, the Children of Húrin.
Right.
Yeah, if you remember, we had talked about the tale of Beren and Lúthien in our first 4-ish episodes, if you don't count the Halloween episode, right?
Right, that's in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere. And if you haven't listened to them, definitely go do it, because there are parts in all three of these tales that kind of intermingle.
They sure do.
Yeah. And Beren and Lúthien is also great because that was Tolkien's great love story, his great, fairy tale, love happy. But this one...
And it'll steal your nerves for this bullshit that you're about to read.
Yes, keep that warm, happy feeling in the back of your mind and hold on tight.
Remember that love is real, all right?
Because this here, the second tale, this is Tolkien's great tragedy.
Right.
Tragic stories have a history in our real culture.
Right, yeah, they're popular as shit even to this day. Let's get into a brief history of the tragedy genre because it goes back to friggin' antiquity, you guys. Tragedy means goat song in classical Greek.
I didn't actually know that.
Which, whatever, goat song, cool.
Weird.
I dig that. Yeah, I dig that shit. And Joel's got a little explanation of tragedy here, a little dictionary def.
Sure. So the definition for tragedy is it's a genre of drama based on human suffering and mainly the terrible or sorrowful events that befall a certain main character. Traditionally, the intention of tragedy is to invoke an accompanying catharsis or a pain that awakens pleasure, if you will, for the audience. Hurts so good, makes you feel.
Sounds kind of masochistic.
Hits you in the feels.
Sometimes
I don't know. I love it. We have a saying here on the show: good and sad.
Good and sad. This is a good and sad one, you guys.
This is good and sad.
Hey, I'm used to types of masochism. I played Dark Souls.
Yes, you do. That's the only time Trevor, I call him, for years I've called him the Zen gamer because he never gets fucking angry. But the only time I've ever seen him throw a controller was playing Dark Souls 2.
I actually threw the controller?
You threw the...
I never throw
But
controllers.
here's the thing. Why you... I excuse you of this. This is because it was the Steam Link controller and it was lag that fucked you.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
That's
that doesn't
why
count.
you were mad.
That doesn't count. That controller doesn't count for
100%.
anything.
I agree, Trev. That doesn't
I would
count
throw
as
that
raging.
controller just for its existence.
Right.
So the tradition of great tragic stories goes all the way back to ancient Greece. Some of the earliest examples of the tragedy genre date back as far as 2,500 years ago. That's That's a long time.
Long time.
A lot of human written history in
many
there.
ages of men. Yes.
Yeah, that is like
you might call
that is
an
like an age. Yeah.
How many generations of people is that? I mean, 2,500 years. That's a long fucking time, man. That's a whole wow.
Tragedy's been around forever. People have loved tragedy forever.
Yeah, and I mean, only a small fraction of these old ones actually survived.
Yeah, and that leads us to believe, a lot of the shit from antiquity didn't make it, right? Like, this is the stuff we have to study is, like, a small percentage of the art and things were written down. So, like, a lot of it survived, which means they must have been wildly fucking popular in their day, right?
Yeah, I mean, even fossils barely form. So, like, old shit doesn't last.
Yeah, shit doesn't last, man. And if you're talking about, like we got a list of homies here from the ancient world that wrote tragedies. Let's hear some of them.
It was Aeschylus.
Aeschylus, yeah.
Sophocles,
Yep.
Euripides, and a Roman one, Seneca.
Yeah, Seneca, Roman. Yeah, they were into tragedies later on too.
Of these names, Seneca's the only one that I recognize.
I've heard before I did this. I had heard of Sophocles, Euripides, and Seneca, but I had never heard of Aeschylus. I'm probably missing out, you guys. There's probably some Aeschylus heads out there that are just super mad that I've never read
Maybe
that
it's
shit.
Aeschylus?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
You want to spell it?
Aeschylus.
Yes, that person. They wrote tragedies.
You all can try to say that yourself.
Well, some of us may be more familiar
with
with
the titles
titles of the works, such
yes.
as Oedipus Rex. Oedipus Rex.
Yes, inappropriate for school, but they still teach it. Antigone, that's another one.
Hamlet.
Sure, yeah. Another Shakespeare.
Romeo and Juliet.
There you go. My boy Arthur Miller, Death of a Salesman, right? Famous tragedy.
And a good old spooky tale, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, yeah, my favorite.
Also very tragic.
Also very sad. It's that book changed my life. That's my favorite. If you know your Danny J trivia from listening to the show, that is my favorite non-Tolkien book, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah, all of these very sad, borderline depressing stories.
Right. So the thing about being sad or depressed, I love doing it, but sometimes
I love doing it.
Sometimes I want it to stop. So what I do,
Me too, man.
So what I find myself doing is going to the biggest time sink I think in the history of humanity, YouTube, right? But you can also learn a lot. I shouldn't shit talk YouTube. Often I turn to watching YouTube videos to calm myself down at the end of the night.
We're on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. We shouldn't shit talk YouTube. We'll get kicked off. But often, weirdly enough, it almost always comes back to videos about the deep sea.
Ooh, James Cameron would be proud.
He would be, wouldn't he?
One of the things I watched was, as we talked about in the holiday special, was James Cameron's Deep Sea Challenge 3D. That was free on YouTube for a while. Now I think you have to buy it again.
I can think of one other person we know that would be pretty proud.
Yeah, who else would that be? If you guys know your lore of the show, right? My longest running friend, I've known him since I was 5, Joe Vaske. And since the Children of Húrin is a bit of a downer here, we're going to have Joe help us out with a new palate cleansing segment, which we call Deep Sea Facts with Joe Vaske.
Yeah, every now and then, when the story gets really depressing, Joe is going to come in and break the ice with some deep sea facts to cheer us up.
Uplifting.
Yeah, Joe's a friend of the show, and he's contributed much to the show over the years, so we thought we'd bring a little Joe Vaske to the 100th episode special. Everyone loves him, so here is your first Deep Sea Fact with Joseph Vaske.
Roll it. Deep Sea Fact 1.
Hey guys, this is Deep Sea Facts with Joe Vaske. I'm Joe Vaske. So here's the first palate cleanser for you. The ocean is teeming with all kinds of life, as I'm sure you know. Just 1 millimeter of ocean water can contain nearly 10 million viruses. In subtropical ocean waters, swimmers have a roughly 37% chance of encountering some form of staph bacteria, though some estimates put that number closer to 50%. For MRSA specifically, a 2009 study found it at 5 out of 10 public beaches along Puget Sound alone. MRSA is the one that is the flesh-eating bacteria. And that was your Deep Sea Fact with Joe. I'm Joe Vaske.
All right, let's get into some history, guys. So what I learned when I wrote this episode, there's so much that sets up this tale that I hate, spoiler alert, you guys, this whole first episode is basically a prologue to the story. We don't even really get into the story all that much because there's a lot to set up this bitch, you guys.
Yeah, I think we barely dip our toes.
We barely dip
in what
our toes
happens.
in it. So this is the story. The Children of Húrin is the story of the House of Hador, right? So let's talk about the House of Hador. Why not?
Right.
Makes sense.
The lineage of House of Hador, the history or the people that would become the House of Hador. It's documented all the way back to Hildorian in the First Age.
Right.
Yeah. If you refer,
That's a lot of history.
There's a lot of history there, which we actually, the reason we're saying this is because we cut it all out right here. It wasn't here, but refer back to part 2 refer back to our 2-part episode about the race of men. That's episodes 82 and 83. That one was one of the ones that you guys made me split up because I came to you with like a 50-page outline.
Yeah, it was
and you were
little
like,
long.
"You're a psycho."
This is pretty much 2 episodes, so
Yeah.
let's just do 2.
But we cover they were once called the House of Marek before Hador, but we're going to start with Hador here.
Yeah, and if you want to know, bottom line, if you want to know more about the lineage, go check out those episodes 82 and 83 where we covered that in detail.
Yeah.
But in general, let's start by talking about Hador Lorindal.
Right, the Golden Head, right? Well, he made a choice that a lot of the Edain did in the the Elder Days. He decided to enter the service of Fingolfin, one of the Noldor kings, right, of the time. And his ancestor had done that a few generations prior, but they hadn't for a while, right? So it had been a while since Fingolfin's people had seen these Hador guys. And in 416... Hador decided to enter Fingolfin's service.
and can you believe it? He was only 26 years old at the time.
Crazy.
He's greeted as an elf friend to great fanfare, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there was some wild shit happened, man.
Yeah, he's even granted a hereditary fiefdom in the land of Dorloman by Fingolfin, which is pretty sweet.
Straight up, he's like, take this part of my realm. You guys are such cool guys. Take it.
Yeah.
Also, very important artifact.
This is very important.
This is when Hador is presented with the dragon helm of Dorloman, given to him by High King Fingon.
What a gift.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a history here to this item too. This was originally made by Telkar, who is a dwarf of Belagos, right?
Yeah, a little misleading. This is actually a dwarven helmet, not an elvish helmet, despite it being gifted by an elvish king.
And what's funny is you learn about this in the Men episode too. We talk about the heirlooms of the House of Hador.
Mm-hmm.
It actually was given to Maedhros by Telkar because Maedhros was big into the dwarves of Belagos.
Oh, that's right. He was very close with those dwarves. Okay.
So
that makes sense.
The helmet is so large that Maedhros couldn't use it, so he gave it to his cousin and homie Fingon, and then Fingon gave it to one of these huge dudes of the Edain that he knew.
That might actually be able to wear it.
Hador, yes, of course, and Hador, it fit very well.
Yeah, and this helmet is really cool because doesn't it have a face mask?
Yeah, it has
because it's a dwarven helmet.
It's basically they say it's kind of like a modified forge mask. So it's got the likeness of Glaurung the dragon on the top, and it's its purpose is to face dragons and shit. So
pretty badass.
It might come into play in this story, guys. If you don't know the story, maybe it'll come into play. But we got an excerpt from the Silmarillion here, chapter 17 of the Coming of Men into the West. This is where you learn everything about men. So read that chapter. Joel's going to read it for us.
The men of the 3 houses throve and multiplied, but the greatest among them was the house of Hador Goldenhead, peer of the elven lords. His people were of great strength and stature, ready in mind, bold and steadfast, quick to anger and to laughter, mighty among the children of Iluvatar in the youth of mankind. Yellow-haired they were for the most part, and blue-eyed, but not so was Turin, whose mother was Morwen of the house of Beor.
Right. So okay, we've covered Hador Goldenhead. So now we know him. Put him aside for now. Where does he rule over? Well, you might know the land of Dorloman, right?
Yes. Let's talk about that place that he rules over.
Why not?
Dorloman.
It's central to the story. We might as well talk about some fucking geography.
This is Turin's homeland.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. It's located in Hithlum.
Sure. Yeah, it's like a subsection of Hithlum.
And then in the northwestern corner of, guess where? Beleriand.
Right.
Pretty cool place. And it's separated from Greater Beleriand by Arid Wethrin, which are the Mountains of Shadow.
Of course.
Which I always thought was a relatively ominous name for just a pretty normal range of mountains. There's nothing bad about them.
Well, they seem to be very hard to cross because if you remember, we'll get into it later.
Okay.
We'll talk into it. We'll talk
Maybe
about it
I'm
later.
here. Maybe I'm going to be learning today.
This is the shadow.
Maybe
some
this is
kinda-
what I'm going to learn.
Some kind of
Well, no,
death
it's-
breath.
It holds. So at one point, after a huge battle happens, the Arid Wethrin is the even the Balrogs can't cross it to get into Hithlum.
Oh,
if
so
you
they're
remember
very
right.
sheer and tall.
Yeah, it must have
Okay.
been super hard because Morgoth couldn't fight his way into Hithlum no matter how hard he tried
Sure.
at one point.
Okay.
So that probably doesn't. I don't think this comes into the story though. To be honest with you, side
Regardless,
information.
though,
But yeah, it's
Dorloman.
Dorloman is actually surrounded on 3 sides by mountains. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, well, I guess that makes this pretty well fortified then from the enemy.
Sure
it's,
is.
It's almost like the good guys Mordor.
It
Yeah.
is kind of like a good guy's version of Mordor. This is why we got this beautiful motherfucker on the show.
And instead of the Black Gate, you get the Gate of the Noldor.
There's a shit like that. Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah, this is we're Tolkieneering up a storm here, you guys.
These mountains, though. What do we got to the east? The mountains of Mithrim.
Sure.
In the west, we've got Arid Loman, the Echoing Mountains. And south, the ones we just talked about, Arid Wethrin.
Mm-hmm.
So the northern border is a stream that runs right into something that is called the Rainbow Cleft. After it goes through sort of a crack in the mountains there called the Gate of the Noldor.
Yeah, it's a geological formation that they call the Gate of the Noldor.
Really cool.
This actually brought me to something that I kind of need your guys' help with. If you're listening to this, please get on the Discord and help me if you can. Because the river that, as far as I can tell, that flows into the Firth of Drengist is unnamed. Right? When I read the Silmarillion for the first million times, I thought this was called the River Drengist, but I could not find that anywhere. And Joel did it too, and also came up empty. So if you guys know what the actual name of the river that runs through the Gate of the Noldor is it just River Drengist?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it had a name. I find it hard to believe that it doesn't have a name.
Me too. That's why I'm
It's just
that's
the
why I'm-
way,
yeah, crazy.
with the way everything is named, every little geographical little hill and river and trees.
Yeah, the only
Like-
unnamed rivers I know of are the ones in Mordor. Those are the only ones I know that are completely unnamed.
Maybe it's just Noldor River.
Yeah,
Goes through the Gate of Noldor.
who knows?
I don't know.
So let's touch on a little bit of the history of the country of Dorloman.
Yeah. So the Noldor, they get there, right? And they settle it. It was first occupied by Sindar elves before that, in the elves of Mithrim.
Yeah, it became governed by the Noldor when, like we mentioned, Fingolfin and the Noldor first arrived to Hithlum in the year 1497, Years of the Trees, after crossing the Helcarax just before the dawn of the First Age. So this is right at the end of the Years of the Trees, when the elves first get here.
Yep.
And rule of the remote region of Dorloman was entrusted to Fingon, the eldest son of Fingolfin.
Of course.
And now you know a little bit about Dorloman.
There you go. Some basic information on Dorloman. There you go, guys.
Let's turn the page and move
file
on.
file that
File that
information
away.
away.
File that away. Now, another thing we have to talk about when we're getting into the story of the Children of Húrin is a major event, a major battle in the wars of Beleriand.
Right. This is this is kind of the catalyst for the story because it sets up this entire paradigm that we're about to live the story in, right? And that, of course, is, you guessed it, the fourth battle of Beleriand, the Dagor Bragolak.
The Battle of Sudden
Flame.
And battle was a turning point in the history of Beleriand.
Huge turning
to
point.
say the least.
And I think this was just a turning point in our friendship because none of that was practiced or planned in any way.
No.
I just want to say
No, that was not. That was totally. That's why you guys listen to KOT for shit like that. That wasn't nowhere in the outline, and we just moved past it. Like it, we were just like, what? Well,
but then we called attention to
that's the kind of shit we do. Yeah, but yeah, that's just how. Honestly, even when the mics aren't rolling, that's how we fucking sound. We're the worst nerds you can imagine, honestly. But that battle, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so what happened here?
Well, the good guys start to rack up some serious losses for one.
Yeah. Dorthonion, the kind of highlands area and the north end of Beleriand there, where the folk of Beor used to live, that's completely fucking destroyed and occupied by Morgoth. The folk of Beor are scattered and literally hunted down by Morgoth, which we heard of in the previous tale,
Beren Lúthien.
Beren and Lúthien.
Yeah, we heard about that with Beren and his father and his
And
band
Boromir,
of
yeah.
men that they were living with in the wilds for a while. They were the last of that house that finally got hunted down.
Yeah. And Hador of the House of Hador and his son Gundor they're slain defending the rear guard of Fingolfin, right?
Yeah, this is a tragic battle.
Yeah, they're making the way safe for their homies, and they paid the ultimate price for that.
Fingolfin's people and the men of the north stopped Morgoth's advance into Hithlum at least, but with great loss.
Great losses.
Right. This is what I was talking about, where they couldn't cross Eredwithrin. Yep.
Gotcha. But all of this basically ended the siege of Angband, which had been going for 400 years. It was pretty successful, some might say.
Yeah.
And after this battle, the Bragalach, a war with Morgoth, never fully ceased again. This was really the beginning of the dark times in Beleriand during the First Age.
You mean to tell me they have forever wars? That's weird. We don't know anything about forever wars, do we?
Yeah, how silly would that be?
How silly would it be to
so silly.
have a war like without end in sight? Weird.
Well, Fingolfin dies as a direct result of, losing all of this. And
yeah, he doesn't die in the battle, but because they lost it, he sort of lost it, if you will.
He kind of thought it was his responsibility to finally stand up to this prick once and for all, basically.
To stand up to Morgoth
himself,
face to face. And he did. He's one of the only people to do it. Naturally, he got killed.
As he would.
But he drew blood, and
he did.
He was a big part of what led up to the story of Beren and Lúthien, because after that, people realized, hey, Morgoth isn't
He's
untouchable.
not untouchable. Mm-hmm.
he bleeds. Even gods bleed.
Punch him, he bleeds, yeah.
Even gods bleed. You sound like fucking Kratos or something.
And the rule of Dorlumen is left to Galdor.
Right.
Yes, important point.
After all,
That's
Galdor.
said and
Galdor the
done.
Tall. This is the first we've brought him up, so let's talk about Galdor the Tall a little bit.
Of course, yes, an ancestor of our main character of the Children of Húrin here. He ruled over the House of Hador at the height of their might, and that's from First Age 455 to 462. The glory days.
The glory days.
He married Harith of the Halidin at the Feast of the Edain, and his sister also married a member of the Halidin, of the House of Haleth, at this feast.
Yeah, they had a cool-ass double wedding. That was like a big party.
Double wedding.
That'd be fun as shit. I would love that wedding.
Probably saves a lot of money.
It probably does save a lot of money to do double weddings.
And
I bet
because
it does.
it's two of the people, the two groomsmen are brothers,
Right.
a lot of the same family are there already, so...
I think they're sisters too that they're marrying. I think they're both marrying.
Nice.
Heirs of the House of Haleth, daughters, I
Gotcha.
believe. Yeah. But yes. So Harith of the Halidin and Galdor the Tall of Hador, of the House of Hador, they have two sons, Húrin and Huor.
Two brothers, very important characters.
And it's funny because they kind of branch off between the tale of this week and the tale of next week. So if you want to follow the Huor track,
Well, not next week, but
not next
after
week.
we finish this
After
subject.
this series,
It's-
yeah. So Huor kind of deals with the fall of Gondolin, which is the next tale, and Húrin deals with our tale. So we're gonna zero in on Húrin's life here. So let's talk about.
You may recognize him from the title of the story, The Children
course.
of Húrin.
Of course,
This
Húrin
is him.
Yeah, also mostly famously known as Húrin Thalion, which means the steadfast, right?
He was born in the First Age, 441, in Hithlum, and he spent his youth with his brother Huor in the Forest of Brethil.
Yeah, under the Halidin there.
And under the care of the maternal uncle, Haldir, of the House of Haleth.
Yeah. So Húrin, he is typical in a way, but also atypical of the House of Hador. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, which is common among the House of Hador. But what else about him, Joel? What was weird about Húrin?
He was uniquely very short in relation to most of the men of his house.
Right.
And his younger brother Huor, on the other hand, was one of the tallest of the Edain, save another character we'll meet later, Tuor, his son. So it's kind of a funny contrast between these two brothers.
Yeah, it's like have you seen the movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger? It's like that, kind of. But we have a little description of the brothers here. This is from the Children of Húrin novel from 2008. Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin.
Húrin was by 3 years the elder, but he was shorter in stature than other men of his kin. In this he took after his mother's people, but in all else he was like Hador, his grandfather, strong in body and fiery of mood. But the fire within him burned steadily, and he had great endurance of will. Of all men of the north he knew most of the counsels of the Noldor. Huor his brother was tall, the tallest of the Edain save his own son, Tuor only, and a swift runner. But if the race were long and hard, Húrin would be the first home, for he ran as strongly at the end of the course as at the beginning. There was great love between the brothers, and they were seldom apart in their youth.
Sounds like they grew up kind of nice together.
Yeah, I think Húrin and Huor really loved each other, and they had a cool relationship because they are both very different people, but they love each other very much, and they both have strengths that the other doesn't have, and they're both strong in their own way. Because they're House of Hador, right, baby?
The
Yeah,
Forest
buddy.
of Brethil seems to be like a place that certain men go to, like humans go to sort of get away and live in peace for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And we may see that also later on in this
We
story.
may see that.
We'll see that. Yeah, the Forest of Brethil, keep that in mind. That is where some of their relatives in the House of Haleth live, right?
So let's get in a little bit to the early life of Húrin Thalion.
Like we said, Húrin and Huor spent their youth in the Forest of Brethil with the people of Haleth, their mom's people, right? Because she was Harith, the daughter of Halmir, who was the lord of the Haleth at the time, lord of Brethil.
The boys learned to be fierce warriors by rolling deep with the men of Brethil, always hanging out, going out and learning what they know. And they joined up with their scouting parties at a very super young age. So they're learning quick. And one of their adventures, they ended up in a pretty big pickle. And we've got a fun excerpt here about this from the Silmarillion, read by Trevor.
Thus it was that the sons of Galdor were fostered in Brethil by Haldir their uncle, according to the custom of men in that time, and they both went to that battle with the orcs, even Huor, for he would not be restrained, though he was but 13 years old. But being with a company that was cut off from the rest, they were pursued to the ford of Brithiach, and there they would have been taken or slain, but for the power of Ulmo, that was strong in Syrian. A mist arose from the river and hid them from their enemies, and they escaped over the Brithiach into Dimbar, and wandered among the hills beneath the sheer walls of the Cresagrim, until they were bewildered in the deceits of that land, and they knew not the way to go on or to return. There Thorndor espied them, and he sent 2 of his eagles to their aid.
Right. So here, guys, we're going to get into a part of the story that we're not going to cover today. And I know you said, hey, I thought you were going to cover these stories like they're meant to be covered. And I would say, hey, Dave, slow down. You know what I mean?
Chill the fuck out,
Chill the fuck
Dave.
out, Dave. We're going to cover this in the next series because this has more to do with the fall of Gondolin. So Húrin and Huor have adventures, cliffhanger, right? We'll learn about those soon. But let's get into the death of their lord, right? The death of Galdor.
So Galdor passes away in the year 462 of the First Age when orcs invaded Hithlum.
Sure, as they're wont to do. Galdor is slain defending the fortress of Ethel-Sirion. This is that cool fortress located at the source of the river Sirion.
And Húrin takes command, and he drives off the orcs. And he's now the 3rd Lord of Dorloman, as we've said here, and that's at the young age of only 21.
God damn.
Yeah, so his Father Galdor is slain, right in fucking front of him, and he is now the Lord of Dorloman at 21.
He's yet a boy.
Just a boy. What was I doing at 21? Nothing like this. That's for goddamn
Getting
not-
trashed,
yeah,
probably.
getting trashed with you guys. No,
Definitely not leading an entire country of men.
Hell no.
yeah. Let's get into Húrin's his personal life, I guess, right? Because he's now the Lord of Dorloman. He logically takes a wife, right? In 464, Húrin marries Morwen, the daughter of Beregund of the House of Beor.
So Bera here was Morwen's great uncle. Just to make a connection there.
Yeah. So
Beren's
she's
father was her great uncle.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know, I'm not great with genealogy, but I think that's Beren is like her 3rd cousin or something like that. So she's also akin to Beren or Camion, and it actually says at one point that they look similar. You know, they all look like the House of Beor.
So let's talk about Morwen for a second.
Yeah, Morwen is also key to this story. She's called Eladwin, Sindarin for Elfsheen.
So she's said to be the most beautiful of the daughters of the Edain of the elder days. So one of the most beautiful human women
Ever.
And she came to Dorloman as a refugee in the aftermath of the Dagor Bragollach, which we just touched on a little bit ago.
Right. She used to live in Ladros, which it was a city that the House of Beor lived in, and it's
no longer
there anymore.
Yeah, no, that's gone.
Yeah, the Lord of Ladros was the leader of the House of Beor, and that's not a thing anymore.
We've got an excerpt here from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin, read by Danny.
Morwen was dark-haired and tall, and for the light of her glance and the beauty of her face, men called her Eledwin, the Elven Fair. But she was somewhat stern of mood and proud. The sorrows of the House of Beor saddened her heart, for she came as an exile to Dorloman from Dorthonion after the ruin of the Bragollach.
All right, everybody. We're finally gonna get into it.
Finally,
We're
that's the
almost
prereq.
7 pages
I
in.
don't know. You were 7 pages into the outline. God knows how long into the fucking episode. But here we go. The main character. Let's hear it.
Turin
Born in 464 of the First Age.
Yeah, it may be funny to some of you. The story is called The Children of Húrin, but really the main character of this story is Turin.
Right.
Turin Bar.
Who is a child of Húrin, and yeah, you'll hear, guys. It's
all coming.
It's all, yeah. I just for those of you, I hope there are people out here that don't know this story, because I know a lot of you fucking do, but I hope there are people that are like, I'm gonna get KOT's version of it first before I read it. Just wait, guys. But anyway, Turin. We got a description of him from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin. And if you guys are wondering, the Children of Húrin novel from 2008 is pretty much the definitive for this episode that everything was derived from. So here it is, from the horse's mouth, Children of Húrin, Chapter 1.
He was dark-haired as his mother, and promised to be like her in mood also, for he was not merry, and spoke little, though he learnt to speak early and ever seemed older than his years. Turin was slow to forget injustice or mockery, but the fire of his father was also in him, and he could be sudden and fierce. Yet he was quick to pity, and the hurts or sadness of living things might move him to tears, and he was like his father in this also, for Morwen was stern with others as herself.
Right. And if you guys listen to these descriptions very carefully and go back to them, when you're wondering why Turin does certain things later on in the story, like why he behaves the way he does, I want you to refer back to this Childhood of Turin episode that you're about to hear, because I think I've read this story a bunch of different times, and I think the Childhood of Turin plays deeply into how he reacts to his lot later in life.
Fair.
Well, 2 years after Turin is born, Erwin is born.
Yeah, her name is not in a glossary, but some sources I found said Ur or Gwen, and there's Cinderin elements of fire, hot, or maiden. So she's the hot maiden or the fire maiden.
Fire maiden.
Maybe.
That's pretty cool.
Well, she was super loved by everyone.
That's true.
Yeah.
She was very beloved.
I mean, heck, they called her Lilith.
This is sister to Turin.
Sister to Turin, yeah, little
Turin's
sister.
younger
Yep.
sister.
He had a hot sister, of course.
Yeah. Hot maiden. I don't know about that, Trav.
I don't know if we could argue that. Yeah, so Turin's new younger sister was loved by everyone, and they called her Lilith, which means laughter.
Laughter. We got another excerpt from Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, going to be read by Trevor.
Her hair was like the yellow lilies in the grass as she ran in the fields, and her laughter was like the sound of the merry stream that came singing out of the hills past the walls of her father's house. Nen Lilith it was named, and after it all the people of the household called the child Lilith, and their hearts were glad while she was among them.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What a lovely child.
What a lovely child. Very beloved. Yeah, she kind of like raised the spirits of like the whole goddamn village, man. Like she was so friggin' cute and lovely. Everyone loved her, right? And Turin loved her as well. And Turin, he had a very close relationship with his mother, but not so much with his father, Húrin.
Yeah, Húrin was often like doing shit for Fingon or like defending the borders and stuff.
Right.
Helping society.
Húrin is like not only a leader of the country, but he's like a captain. for these armies of men and things, and they're in a time of war now.
Yeah, and like he's off doing important things, right? Like long and short of it, important things. As someone who did not have a dad, paternal relationships are kind of strange to me. The idea that Turin grows to have a great reverence for his father, even though he's not really super involved in Turin's life, always kind of fascinated me, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really track.
It doesn't really track, but it's no wonder that Turin actually found it awkward and kind of scary being around his dad on the rare occasions that arose. And I heavily identified with that based on the few times I remember spending time with my dad. I felt almost exactly the same way. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, we've got an awesome excerpt here about this from The Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin, read by none other than Danny.
He loved his mother, for her speech to him was forthright and plain. But his father he saw little, for Húrin was often long away from home with the host of Fingon that guarded Hithlum's eastern borders. And when he returned, his quick speech, full of strange words and jests and half-meanings, bewildered Turin and made him uneasy. That's how I felt, too. Who is this guy? Why is he super familiar with me when I'm not familiar with him?
What are these weird-ass things he's saying?
Yeah, he's saying weird shit, like, you know?
It's kind of weird because I can relate to this, but from a mother perspective. So, because I was raised by my grandmother,
right?
My mom wasn't really like around. You know, she was lived in other places. So, whenever my mom was around,
she was super familiar with you.
And she was super familiar with me and trying to be like like motherly and like
my son,
like like parents do, demanding and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, lady, you haven't been around this whole
right,
I listened to this other woman.
You demand affection, yet who are you? You know,
like I'm sure I saw my mom more than Turin saw his dad, but
sure,
still.
But yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I guess it's funny. You didn't bring that up at all while we were reviewing this. Did you just think of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just made that connection.
See, this is all a very emotional story, guys. It gets you thinking. Like I was telling the guys here that I read this story as I'm reading it again. I read it a lot differently because I take care of children now, right? Like I have stepkids, and I think this childhood of Turin part of the story hits a little bit harder when you're a parent. And we'll see some more of that here in a second.
Yeah, so jumping back in here to the childhood of Turin. So one of the main reasons why Turin is the main character of this whole tale is because Turin's life sucks.
It really sucks.
Turin's life is very sad. Nothing but sad things happens to Turin, and I'd argue that this is probably one of the first...
This is the first awful thing that
happens to him, this next event here. So there's a plague that enters the country from Angband, seemingly, and it infects Dorloman, and many are killed. Both of Húrin's children are inflicted with this disease, so both Turin and his sister. And Turin shows his hardiness, and he survives after being very, very sick.
And he's out for like weeks.
Yeah,
like
but he's
swooned.
out.
Yeah, like he that kid nearly fucking died, man. Like he was so close to death. And Lalaith, she does not fare so well.
No, unfortunately, the dear Lalaith, Laughter, the little daughter that everybody loved, she died.
Oh, this is why he can't have a hot sister.
She's a little girl.
I understand that.
Yes, she dies as a child,
and she dies.
Which is why arguing that she is the hot sister would not be appropriate.
Sorry, everybody. I didn't mean it.
He didn't know.
Context is everything.
I know
Context
somebody is like
everything.
Somebody's already out there, like they heard that and they're canceling Trevor on X already.
I heard that motherfucker say.
Moving
forward, very sad.
Tragically, she dies of a plague very young. Which
tragic for not only Turin, but the whole community. Really,
the whole community. Yeah, she lifts the spirits of everyone. She's the life of the party, as it were. And like shit gets real sad from now on in Dorloman. And we got a little excerpt from the chapter 1 of the Children of Húrin, the Childhood of Turin, and Joel's going to read it for us. It's about this whole Lalaith death business.
And when Morwen came to him, Turin said to her, "I am no longer sick, and I wish to see Erwin. But why must I not say Lalaith any more? Because Erwin is dead, and laughter is stilled in this house," she answered. "But you live, son of Morwen, and so does the enemy who has done this to us." Pay
attention to this part, you guys. This is the part where we get into the parentage of like how Turin was reared as a child, right?
Right.
Like his mother is straight up emotionally unavailable.
Yeah,
right?
she already seems like she's kind of emotionally distant in general.
Yeah.
And now after this, a death of her daughter, it
makes it just way worse. And
she closes up.
Yeah, and the parents, they both deal with the grief in completely different ways, which totally makes sense, right? Their temperaments are completely different, and it perfectly highlights just the difference in the way they approach grief and suffering, right? And like think of this as you think later on in the tale when Turin suffers, how he reacts. Trevor is going to read this part from Chapter 1, Childhood of Turin, from the Children of Húrin.
She did not seek to comfort him any more than herself, for she met her grief in silence and coldness of heart. But Húrin mourned openly, and he took up his harp, and he would make a song of lamentation, but he could not, and he broke his harp. And going out, he lifted up his hand towards the north, crying, "Marrer of Middle-earth, would that I might see you face to face, and mar you as my lord Fingolfin did."
So let's take a look at this. We have two different parents here, reacting in two completely different ways. We have Húrin, who is a strong, mighty, and passionate man, right? He reacts with
very
dramatically, and very violently, really. It's revenge that he wants.
Revenge. He focuses on the revenge.
He focuses
very much so, and
on
the violence.
Yes, exactly. And Morwen is over here not able to comfort anybody, including herself. Like, she can't even make herself less sad. So fuck trying to make anyone else less sad, including your little boy. You know what I mean?
She also seems to be almost equally focused on revenge, but just without that violence, without that fiery passion.
So,
she's just more passive about it. Like,
I want to
remember who did this.
I want to go back to that. Yeah, she says, "But you live, son of Morwen, and so does the enemy that has done this to us." So she says, "You were spared today, so you better hate this motherfucker for the rest of your life for what he did to this family." And Turin fucking does, you guys. Like, all this shit in his childhood adds up to who he is as an adult. And it's a weird thing to see now that I never saw before.
Shall we talk about one of Turin's bestie buddies?
Yeah, well, Turin wasn't without parenting, right? He wasn't without friends and close people. He had Sador, right?
Yeah.
Even if his blood parents weren't much of parents.
Right, and a lot of times it's the family that you choose, right? That's more effective, I want to say, as a family. Impactful in your life. Yeah, I don't want to say effective. But yes, impactful. So yeah, Turin, he straight up never spoke of his sister to his mother again. That was it. After she said she's dead and we no longer laugh in this house and remember who did this, that was it. That was the last he'd ever spoke to his mother about his beloved dead sister.
That really sucks.
Isn't that wildly depressing?
Really depressing. And he's still a child.
This is his fucking mom, you guys. Like, he should be able to go to his mom with the grief of losing his sister, and she can't even comfort him.
And his dad's barely around, so like...
Well, his dad's not only barely around, but when he is... he's dramatically swearing revenge to a far-off enemy. He's not doing anything productive, like helping his son deal with grief.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, so yeah, Sador. I love Sador. Sador's one of my favorite characters. So who is Sador? Let's get into him.
So Sador is a woodworker who was in service to Turin's father, and Turin began to have a really close relationship with him. And Turin often helped him in his workshop, and that was largely because Sador was disabled. His foot was partially hewn away, and his remaining limb had sort of withered up, as happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. Turin called him Labadal, which translates to Hop-a-foot.
Hop-a-foot, yeah. It's like a little, like what a little kid would say about a person that limped. Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't out of mockery. Turin gave it out of love, so it didn't bother Sador.
It didn't bother Sador, and I love that he let him use that.
Yeah,
you know?
I do too.
Yeah, and Turin would often bring Sador pieces of lumber or tools that he thought might be useful to him.
Yeah, he's like the one of the little birds that like they get this shiny stuff to bring back to people, like crows and stuff, right? Like,
he's just a young kid, and he likes, feeling like he's doing something, being productive.
Well,
like, hey, I found this for you.
And not to get too psychologist on it too, but like Sador gives him something that even his family can't provide to him, right? Comfort and
love and comfort.
Love and comfort.
And some attention.
I feel like Turin feels like he has to do something in return to that because he doesn't get unconditional love from his parents, right?
That could be.
So he feels like he has to pay for it. So he helps by finding tools, pieces of lumber, any kind of piece of wood he finds. He's like, hey, my buddy Sador might be able to use that.
He even takes things maybe that he shouldn't sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, maybe he goes a little too far in trying to be nice.
Right.
And as a direct quote from Sador, give with a free hand, but give only your own.
Right. Because, yeah, Sador would make him return items that he was pretty sure were stolen.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sador would also make Turin little figurines and carvings, and Turin just loved that shit. And he loved hearing anything that Sador would tell him, right? Like he was just glued to anything this guy would say. And I think it's because he's the first guy that kind of showed an interest in Turin, right?
Yeah, and he had some cool stories because Sador was once a soldier in the garrison of Ethelsirion. And he was there when Galdor was slain and Húrin took up command. So he's got some pretty cool war stories that even directly involve Turin's dad. So, of course, Turin's going to dig all of these cool stories.
Of course.
We've got an excerpt here from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin, read by Danny.
In Ethelsirion I was when the Black King assailed it, and Galdor, your father's father, the captain there, in the king's stead. He was slain in that assault. And I saw your father take up his lordship and his command, though but new to manhood. There was a fire in him that made the sword hot in his hand, they said. Behind him we drove the orcs into the sand, and they have not dared to come within sight of the walls since that day.
Cool story.
Yeah. Sador and Turin, they actually have really deep conversations, too. And this is where Sador starts to kind of play the role of parent to Turin.
Yeah,
Do we know how old Sador is? Or
I feel like he's middle aged.
I feel like he's got to be at least middle-aged.
Yeah.
And
I feel like he's probably
not,
50, 40s, 50s.
And if not, it sounds like he has probably physically aged that much, just due to his...
Well, yeah, he was a soldier.
He was a soldier, and
a woodsman.
he sort of lost a foot and lost a leg almost.
Yeah, and what's funny is like it's kind of shitty, but like people kind of treat Sador like shit because and even Húrin mentions this. It was his own fault that he wounded his foot. He did
it. Woodsman. It
was an accident. Yeah,
an accident.
An accident. Exactly. Oh no! You punny fucking bastard.
Here we go.
Yeah, it was an accident. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but so people look at him as kind of like a dumbass, right? Like you wounded yourself to the point where you can't work, or
some people don't take him seriously.
Some people don't take him seriously, and Turin does because Turin's not a judgmental asshole, right?
Hell yeah. But Sador often felt awkward answering some of Turin's questions because he thought some of these questions would have been more appropriate to be taught by his family. But unfortunately, Morwen is cold and silent in her suffering, and Húrin is gone all the time and doesn't have that much of a good bond with Turin.
Yeah, and I think Sador is Turin's, honestly, like his first true friend. And this relationship is super important in Turin's life. You might be thinking, like, why are we spending all this time talking about the carpenter, right? It's because this is Turin's first close relationship. And it's the first person he actually completely trusts, in my opinion. And, as you might agree with.
Yeah, I mean, he even asked Sador about his dead sister. It's something he won't even talk to his mom about.
Which we
anymore.
learned, yeah.
Right.
He won't talk to his mother about it anymore.
Talk about feeling awkward about answering questions.
Yeah.
This is one of those.
Some deep shit.
This was kind of like when I first started hanging out with who is my stepson now, Timmy. Timmy, you guys have both met him. He talks constantly. Like, he asks a billion questions about anything that he feels like. And he would kind of get into these questions like, bro, I barely know you, man. Like, why should I don't really want to answer this right now.
Should I be telling you?
Yeah. So, no, I get this whole Sador, like a kid being very close to you and wanting to open up to you, and you're not sure if you should at this point, because it's like, I get it. I get it, Sador. I love Sador. He's a great character. But we got an excerpt from The Children of Húrin again, Chapter 1, Childhood of Turin, and it's going to be read by Joel.
In this way, Sador would speak to Turin as he grew older, and Turin began to ask many questions that Sador found hard to answer, thinking that others, nearer kin, should have had the teaching. And one day Turin said to him, "Was Lalaith indeed like an elf child, as my father said? And what did he mean when he said that she was briefer?" "Very like," said Sador. "For in the first, youth of the children of men and elves seem close akin. But the children of men grow more swiftly, and their youth passes soon. Such is our fate. Then Turin asked him, What is fate? As to fate of men, said Sador, you must ask those that are wiser than Labadal. But as all can see, we weary soon and die, and by mischance many meet death even sooner. But the elves do not weary, and they do not die save by great hurt. From wounds and griefs that would slay men they may be healed, and even when their bodies are marred they return again, some say. It is not so with us. Then Lalaith will not come back? Said Turin. Where has she gone? She will not come back, said Hador. But where she has gone, no man knows, or I do not.
Can you fucking believe that? He didn't even know that he would never see his sister again until he talked to the goddamn woodworker.
What a terrible person to have to break that to you.
Yeah. Can you
that's
fucking believe that?
Oh, that's a heartbreaking conversation. Jesus Christ.
And definitely, I would definitely, guys, suggest going back to the novel to read this full conversation that they have. It's a super frank discussion of life and death with Turin and someone he totally trusts, right? So it's super interesting. And this, in my opinion, is where Turin learns to trust people that don't bullshit him and people that are direct with him. Because Morwen was always say what you want about her parenting style. She was always forthright and plain with Turin, right?
She was.
And he always respected her for that. He is like, she might not be the most comforting person, but she will not lie to my face. You know what I mean? But interestingly enough, this conversation that Turin and Sador have actually mirrors the sentiments in the conversation that we talked about in the Men episode as well. The Athrabeth, Finrod, Andreth. If you remember, this is a conversation between Andreth of the House of the Edain and Finrod Felagund. It talks about the existential differences between elves and men, the nature of life and death. And it honestly, it triggered like so much that I had to write it in here because I was like, I feel like we've had this conversation before. And I remembered the Athrabeth. But Turin even goes on to blame the fate of men on Morgoth, just as Andreth does in the conversation, if you remember that.
Oh, I do remember.
You remember this now. Remember, she goes, it's his fault that we die. And then Finrod's like, no, dude.
That's the way it is.
It goes, it's just like that. So like, it's super, super interesting Tolkieneering. Check this shit out in the novel, guys. But okay, are you sufficiently sad, guys?
Do you feel tragedied?
I feel pretty tragedied now.
That was a pretty bummer conversation.
All right, guys. And this is when we're going to get into our palate cleansing segment with our friend Joe Vaske, Deep Sea Facts with Joe Vaske. Roll that second clip.
Roll it.
Deep Sea Fact 2.
Dos.
Hey, here's another deep sea fact for you with Joe Vaske. I'm Joe Vaske. If you have never been to the ocean before, you might be surprised at just how salty it is. Salt accounts for 3.5% of seawater by weight. Because of this, the U.S. Navy teaches to grab overboard persons by the clothes or have them climb a net because the salty water can cause the skin to be stripped right off. I sort of envision like just meat off a chicken bone, kind of. That was your deep sea fact with Joe Vaske. I'm Joe Vaske.
That was interesting.
I felt like that was really uplifting. I'm glad that he told us that one, you guys.
I needed that.
I needed that.
Yeah, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
Me too. Palate cleansed.
Should we dive back into...
Let's dive back into the story of Turin Turambar.
Maybe his last happy day?
Yeah, I call this Turin's last happy day, which is obviously ironic. But just before the horrible stuff that we're about to get into, there's a brief interlude for Turin's birthday, right? He does have a little bit of joy in his life.
Just a little bit here and there.
But you'll see as many things that are joyous to Turin, they turn to shit in his hands, as as it were. So, yes. So Turin's birthday, he's given a knife made by an elf-made knife, right? The Noldor probably made this, I'm assuming. And it was given to him by Húrin, right? Super cool gift for a little boy.
His dad gives him this fucking gnarly elf-made, Noldorin-made dagger.
Yeah, dude.
Very cool. He also gives some really important words, possibly about the use of violence as a means to an end.
But that's kind of how I read it. I don't know if that's true, but let me know what you guys think. Join the Discord. We got a Trevor read Children of Húrin excerpt from Chapter 1, Childhood of Húrin.
On the morning of Turin's birthday, Húrin gave his son a gift, an elf-wrought knife, and the hilt and the sheath were silver and black. And he said, "Heir of the house of Hador, here is a gift for the day. But have a care. It is a bitter blade, and steel serves only those who can wield it. It will cut your hand as willingly as aught else." And setting Turin on a table, he kissed his son and said, "You overtop me already, son of Morwen. Soon you will be as high on your own feet. In that day, many may fear your blade."
Yeah, so he's saying here the knife can kill anybody, good or bad. It doesn't matter. Violence can be used for good or for evil. At least that's how I read this. Let us know what you think, though. Hit us up on Discord. But Turin then, after this conversation that his father, has with him, he does something super strange for a kid to do.
I love this, actually.
This is super weird, right? Like, very few kids would do what Turin is about to do.
Yeah, he runs off, and he re-gifts it to his best buddy, Sador.
Straight up. He acknowledges the fact that it's a super sick gift. He's like, wow, this is super awesome. Thank you. But then immediately re-gifts it.
Yeah, and I think this is a really telling characteristic about Turin.
He would literally give the clothes off his back for one of his friends. He's a loyal dude that way, Turin.
Sador even knows, he was just given the knife by Húrin that same day. But he doesn't insult such a gift freely given by a friend. And what a grand gift, even.
Right, he doesn't want to upset the kid.
Right.
He's super excited to give this gift.
Right, and eventually, so Húrin, a few days or amount of time goes by, he noticed that Turin doesn't wear the knife, because you'd think you give a kid that thing, they're going to be playing with it all the time, right? They'll be wearing it all the time. But Turin is blunt, and he says straight up, "I gave it to Sador." And Morwen asked him why. She's like, "Bro, what the fuck? Why would you? Why we just gave that to you? What the heck's wrong with you?" And I love how Turin kind of it doesn't occur to him that was a rude thing to do. So that's what she's asking here in this next quote from the Children of Húrin that Joel's going to read. A little tiny one here.
"Do you then scorn your father's gift?" said Morwen. And again Turin answered, "No, but I love Sador, and I am sorry for him." Then Húrin said, "All three gifts were your own to give, Turin. Love, pity, and the knife the least."
Húrin, what a great guy.
Yeah, Húrin says that's some wise shit to say.
How uplifting.
You get to choose who you love and who you respect and who you pity, right?
Yeah, you're free to give, all of these things as you see fit,
Yeah.
Knife included.
Yeah. And what Húrin says, the knife was the least of this. We learned an important lesson here, Turin, and that was the real gift, right?
Love and pity and empathy.
Love, exactly. And fuck the knife, dude. We can get another priceless knife made in Valinor,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally.
All right, well, that was the last happy day of Turin's life. So let's get into when the shitstorm starts a-brewing. That's, of course, that shitstorm that you might know coming up is the Nirnaeth Arnoidiad. So let's get into the rumors of when war may begin.
So as Turin gets older, there is clearly something going on behind the scenes. The House of Hador and the Eldar were planning for war. They were organizing something that would become known as the Union of Maedhros, a final assault on Angband by all of Morgoth's enemies teaming up together. They've had enough.
But Turin he's not sheltered from all this, and he's not dumb. He's got his suspicions. And so we've got a small excerpt here from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin, read by Danny.
Already there were rumors among the elders of a great mustering and gathering of arms, of which Turin heard nothing, though he marked that his father often looked steadfastly at him, as a man might look at something dear that he must part from.
God, that's sad.
Pretty sad, he was looking at you
He wants to be home,
yeah.
but he can't.
So at this point in the story, this is when Turin's parents start planning for the worst. What are they going to do if shit hits the fan?
Yeah, because this whole Union of Maedhros thing, everyone's super confident that it's going to work. because of the tale of Beren Lúthien, right? We know that this dude is untouchable, so we're going to assail Angband once and for all, and it's totally going to work. But they're smart, and they're like, what if it doesn't work?
Right.
What are we going to do with our family?
We got a plan, because things are pretty bad already. Like,
yeah, I mean,
can we afford for them to get worse? We got a plan.
Exactly, that's true. They are already bad. Can we have them get worse? Is a perfect way to put it, yes. But yeah, Turin is super confident that the campaign will go well. He thinks that if anything can overthrow the might of Melkor, it's the Eldar of the West, right? They're the most powerful thing he's ever seen with his eyes, so that makes sense, right? But after a night of poor sleep, he has a frank conversation with Morwen.
Yeah, and this is where they discuss what they're going to do in worst case scenario. So they have a debate about where to flee if the north is completely lost, and Húrin tells her to go south and basically GTFO, just get out of Dorloman as fast as you can.
Yeah, Húrin suggests they go to Brethil.
That's where he grew up.
Right. And Morwen rightly predicts that with the fall of the two houses of the Edain, and well, this third one's going to be doomed too.
Right.
Yeah, so Brethil might not be the best bet long term.
Right, because at this point, the House of Bayor has already been wiped out, right? They're living as refugees among Hador and Haleth. If Hador falls too, Brethil's not going to stand long.
Yeah,
right?
Haleth and over there in Brethil is probably going to go pretty quick after.
Yeah, so Morwen, she brings up a sensitive subject, a place that nobody could really get to, as far as we know, Gondolin. But Húrin refuses to talk about that because he says he does not know exactly where it is. He refuses to consider it as an option, period.
So Morwen comes up with an unlikely plan. She wants to go to Doriath, but of course Húrin is skeptical. And we have an excerpt from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin, read by Joel.
Then if your kin are not hopeful, and your friends deny you, said Morwen, I must take counsel for myself, and to me now comes the thought of Doriath. Ever your aim is high, says Húrin. Over high, you would say, said Morwen, but last of all defenses will the girdle of Melian be broken, I think, and the house of Bayor will not be despised in Doriath. Am I not now kin of the king? For Beren, son of Berahir, was grandson of Bregor, as was my father also.
Honestly, this is pretty fucking smart of Morwen. I mean, that's the last place you'd look for the heir of the House of Hador, right?
True.
In Doriath?
And she's not wrong about there being a distant kinship there with Beren.
It's true. Yeah, so technically they're related. Yeah, technically Turin is distantly related to Thingol.
To Beren.
Or, yeah.
I guess through, yeah.
Well, both, through marriage, right?
Through marriage. So Húrin tells Morwen that he trusts her judgment and asks her only to act swiftly if things go south.
Yeah, just do what you're going to do, but do it quick, right?
Do it
That's
fast.
what he says, yeah.
He also reminds her that if they win, great things will happen for them.
Yeah, and he ends it with a little bit of optimism, like, let's plan for the worst, but hey, I think this could be good for the House of Hador if we fucking win, right? But it's funny because, he gives us a little glimpse of what it could be like for Turin if he weren't cursed, and how his life turns out, like if it would have turned out better. But we don't get to see that. We get this shitty version of the story. So let's talk more about war.
Yes, the Nirnaeth Arnordiad we had brought up. So let's talk about the march to this war.
Mm-hmm.
So Turin wakes one day to a huge ordeal. There are men on horses everywhere, and his father and men are all ready for battle.
Yes, they're assembling for war. They're setting off to do so. Húrin is barking orders to the men of the House of Hador, as he would be, right? And we got a little excerpt from Children of Húrin, Chapter 1, The Childhood of Turin. It's going to be read by Trev Dog.
Then he lifted Turin to his shoulder and cried to his men, Let the heir of the House of Hador see the light of your swords! And the sun glittered on 50 blades as they leaped forth, and the court rang with the battle cry of the Edain of the North. Laco Kalad, Drego Morn, Flame Light, Flee Night! Then at last Húrin sprang into his saddle, and his golden banner was unfurled, and the trumpets sang again in the morning, and thus Húrin Thalion rode away to the Nirnaeth Arnordiad. But Morwen and Turin stood still by the doors, until far away they heard the faint call of a single horn on the wind. Húrin had passed over the shoulder of the hill, beyond which he could see his house no more.
You ever get a horrible feeling when you leave home that might be the last time you ever done it?
Last time you see it.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling he should have got right now, I think. Yeah, this could be you're marching off to what could be a disastrous war or a very profitable and glorious thing.
Either way, it's going to be big.
Either way, it's going to be big. And if you're coming home, it's not going to be the same either way, basically. So,
Big on the if you're coming home part.
Yeah,
if
so
you're coming home.
let's talk a little bit about this battle. And again, this is the Nir Nath Arnodiad, which translates to...
The Battle of Unnumbered Tears. Yeah.
So you can probably glimpse from the title of the battle that things don't go so well.
Right.
The story's a tragedy. The battle is named after tears, which is sad stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
An innumerable number
Innumerable, yeah.
of tears.
Innumerable. And the battle is an absolute clusterfuck. We could probably will do an entire episode about it eventually.
Likely.
But a whole bunch of people are assembled and many are killed. That's really all we're going to say here because we have the entire fucking novel of the Children of Húrin to get you guys.
Yeah, so we're going to just try to talk about the bits that are pertaining to Húrin and the House of Hador.
Yes.
So, but one thing that can be taken away from this utter and total defeat of our good guys here is that nothing will be the same, and everything is kind of fucked from here on out.
Just here on out, yeah, just if there's a rule of thumb for the rest of the story, it's that everything is fucked and getting worse.
We haven't even gotten to the tragedy yet, guys.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the fate of the House of Hador after this awful battle. The battle, it rages on. In the host of Fingon, the sons of Galdor commanded the men of Dorloman under the banner of High King Fingon.
Of course. And there's an epic meeting of old friends on the battlefield just before it all hits the fan. We got, who are the players here, you guys?
We got Fingon, Turgon, Húrin, and Huor.
The two sets of brothers, right?
Two brothers. Two sets of brothers.
And they know each other from something that we are going to get into in the next series, but we left out of this episode, so stay tuned.
So eventually the battle starts going south, and Fingon is separated from them and is brutally killed by Gothmog, Lord of Balrog.
Oh, love Gothmog.
And after that, they decided that they needed to get King Turgon out of there. Because at this point, King Turgon is looking like he's going to be the last standing king of the elves left from this battle.
And he is now High King of the Noldor in exile.
He is now High King because they just watched the High
watched
King get killed.
Bifurcation of the skull. By the way, there's so much that we're leaving out of this story because there's so much epic shit, but like we have to mention his skull got cut in half, right? Like we have to.
And then they trod his banners in the mire,
of his blood. Yeah, super gross. But yeah, Fingon, pour one out. Missed that guy.
Yeah, he died brutally. But we've got a lovely excerpt here from the Children of Húrin, The Battle of Unnumbered Tears, read by Danny.
The field was lost, but still Húrin and Huor and the remnant of the House of Hador stood firm with Turgon of Gondolin, and the hosts of Morgoth could not yet win the passes of Sirion. Then Húrin spoke to Turgon, saying, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for you are the last of the House of Fingolfin, and in you lives the last hope of the Eldar. While Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still know fear in his heart."
Yeah, so clearly saving Turgon is very important.
It's paramount. Like it's probably the number one priority right now. Like that's what he's saying in this quote. Like we need to get you the fuck out of here because if anybody survives, it's got to be you.
Yeah, so the men of Hador, they make a rear guard, and so Turgon escapes. And shortly after, the host of Hithlum is surrounded. But they are resolved to fight to the last man. And we've got a short excerpt from The Battle of Unnumbered Tears, read by Joel.
But the men of Dorloman held the rear guard as Húrin and Huor desired, for they did not wish to escape the Northlands, and if they could not win back their homes, there they would stand to the end.
Damn. Yeah, it's fucked. I love they're just like, if we can't make it back home, we don't give a fuck. We'll die right here.
These are our homes. This is where we die defending.
Yep. And yeah, Huor is tragically slain by a venomed arrow to the eye. Fuck that.
Yeah, one of the brothers down.
Yeah.
I had to specify that it was venomed.
Yeah.
Like,
so even if you
get
would
it
have
out,
by chance survived, you would have died a slow, painful, venomous death. Yes.
Yeah, venom straight to the brain. They really wanted to make sure you knew Huor's fucking dead.
Yep. He's dead for good. So Húrin is the last man, the last dude standing. He's got the men of the House of Hador completely wiped out, standing dead around him, right? Húrin makes his last stand, but is eventually taken alive. But not before probably the most metal excerpt of all time. And if you might have noticed, we rearranged the excerpt so our newest member could read this metal-ass quote, because we've both, I think, over the years have read it, Joel. And
oh yeah, this is a favorite.
Yeah, and this is where we'll talk about it. Just take it away, Trevor. This is from Children of Húrin, Battle of Unnumbered Tears, most metal Tolkien excerpt ever.
Last of all, Húrin stood alone. Then he cast aside his shield and seized the axe of the orc captain and wielded it two-handed. And it is sung that the axe smoked in the black blood of the troll guard of Gothmog until it withered. And each time that he slew, Húrin cried aloud, Aure in Tulava! Day shall come again! 70 times he uttered that cry, but they took him at last alive, by the command of Morgoth, who thought thus to do him more evil than by death. Therefore the orcs grappled Húrin with their hands, which clung to him still, though he hewed off their arms, and ever their number renewed, till he fell buried beneath them. Then Gothmog bound him and dragged him to Angband with mockery. Thus ended the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. As the sun went down beyond the sea, night fell on Hithlum, and there came a great storm of wind out of the west.
Fuck! Oh my god! Yeah.
Metal
As fuck.
metal.
You know what I really want to do? I was thinking about this as Trevor was reading this. I want to get, because I can't do this myself. I can't do I'm 6'7". I can't do a Húrin cosplay. But if we could get some short king, super ripped dude to do a Húrin cosplay, but he's got orc hands still attached to him. Could you imagine that?
That'd be
and they're
cool.
like bloody and shit. Like he's shooting
got a
off.
smoking
And
axe.
he's got, yeah,
in his
and
hand.
yeah. You could even put like that vape juice. you can put vape juice in the end of it and just. Somebody listening out there, hit us up on the Discord. Make it happen. I
That'd
know.
be
Pretty,
fun.
they're pretty fucking gnarly cosplay.
I know some of you homies out there are doing cosplays.
Deep cut, but
But do it. It's cool, man. Have the arms still attached in the smoking axe. And you can scream at the top of your lungs until you get thrown out of the con, right?
yeah, exactly. Day will come again.
70 times.
Actually, as they drag you out, that would almost be more appropriate. As
Yeah.
they drag you
Yeah,
away,
as you
you
drag you
yell,
away, yeah.
Aure and Tulu. Yeah, anyway.
Cool.
We're getting a little too into it.
Well,
So, the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, awful, terrible, the absolute worst loss of any loss that has ever happened
Ever been
to
lost.
any of
Yeah.
the good peoples of Middle-earth.
So let's the aftermath.
Let's get into some of the
aftermath.
aftermath, yeah.
So Dorloman is completely under occupation. The losses are staggering for the good guys, but the folks of Hithlum are hit probably the hardest of all the Edain. All of the men of Hador are killed.
All of them.
All.
None ever returned to Dorloman ever again.
Ever.
and Dorloman is left defenseless and leaderless.
What's fucked about it is like there's nobody returns, so they have
Not
no
a
idea
sing-
what happened.
Yeah, they send all their men off to war and not a
And just-
single
they just-
one, not even word of what happened.
Yeah, they
comes
like,
back.
did the battle not happen? It's still happening. It might happen. Like, they just don't know until the Easterlings show up to occupy them. They have no idea what happened.
That's right, because since Dorloman is left defenseless and leaderless, after this, Morgoth sends the Easterlings, specifically the House of Ulfang.
Yeah, you remember those cats. If you remember your battle history, they turned on the good guys. in the
Originally,
middle
Morgoth had
battles.
promised them the green, fertile lands of Beleriand, but you know how Morgoth is sometimes. So
Yeah.
instead, he decided, you get to rule over here, this cold, rocky region of Dorloman.
Yeah, Ulfang, they're the turncoats. They suck, right? Fuck them. But I also want to throw out a small KOT shout out here to the House of Bor. If you remember these guys, these are the Easterlings that fought for the good guys. Remember, there was two houses that came over to join the Union of Maedhros. Ulfang, the shitty ones, and Bor. Bor stayed faithful. Cool-ass Easterlings. Anyway,
yeah.
big up to them.
So those were the men that promised to fight for Maedhros in the battle, but they switched sides, as we say. The turncoats.
The Ulfang.
The Ulfang
turncoats.
dudes.
The
yeah.
Ulfang dude. So super fuck those guys. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah, they're awful.
We've got a excerpt here about this scene from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 3, The Words of Húrin and Morgoth, read by Danny.
To Hithlum none of the men of Hador's house returned, nor any tidings of the battle and the fate of their lords. But Morgoth sent thither men who were under his dominion, swarthy Easterlings, and he shut them in that land and forbade them to leave it. This was all that he gave to them of the rich rewards that he had promised them for their treachery to Maedhros, to plunder and harass the old and the children and the womenfolk of Hador's people. The remnant of the Eldar of Hithlum, all those who did not escape into the wilds and the mountains, he took to the mines of Angband, and they became his thralls.
Happy, happy, joy, joy,
Happy, happy, joy, joy. Ren and Stimpy, right?
Yeah, Ren and Stimpy.
Okay, I couldn't. Yeah, I was like, that's reference. Yeah, there we go. That shows. Remember back in the day, it was probably like 2012, 2013. We watched we didn't realize that there was two different versions of Ren and Stimpy, like the dirty one, and then the one we watched
the one
as
where they
kids.
cut the dirty parts out, which was, I mean,
yeah, whatever. But we finally, I remember we watched the adult version. We were like, holy shit!
Yeah,
Ren
I
and
had-
Stimpy's fucked up.
really fucking graphic. Holy
Yeah, it's just
shit!
so
Really
gross.
graphic language and concepts, and
But
I
yeah,
didn't realize that was an adult cartoon originally.
yeah, me neither.
Anyway,
But anyway,
this is all terrible.
sad, terrible, awful bullshit going on here. So I think it's time for another one.
A palate cleanser.
Palate cleanser, guys.
Let's do it.
Let's get into like I said, whenever I have existential dread, I go to YouTube, deep sea videos to calm myself down. So here it is, another deep sea fact with Joe Vaske. Roll fact 3.
Hey guys, this is Deep Sea Facts with Joe Vaske. I'm the aforementioned Joe Vaske. According to the World Register of Marine Species, there are currently about 242,000 known and described marine species living in the world's oceans. And according to a paper published by an international team of researchers, almost 90% of those marine species will be at risk of extinction by the year 2100 due to climate change. Back to you guys. This has been Deep Sea Facts with Joe Vaske.
All right, another thing. In the immediate shittiness of a shitty event. What happens to Húrin after all this, right?
Oh, yeah, because he's
His-
captured.
His misery does not end. No. It has just begun, my friends. Húrin is now in Angband, and he defies Morgoth still.
Yes, this is where things start getting pretty intense. So Húrin is brought before Morgoth himself, and the spies of Morgoth, they already know some things. They already know that Húrin had previously been to Gondolin.
Right.
We sort of briefed over this part of his history because we're going to talk about it in the Fall of Gondolin episode. But
Right.
Morgoth also knows that Húrin was a good friend of the sons of Fingolfin, especially Turgon, the king of Gondolin,
Right.
and that Húrin was deep in the councils of both Turgon and Fingon.
Right. Yeah, and not Húrin might not only know the location of Gondolin, but also maybe shit about like its defenses and its plans for war against Morgoth. I mean, he was that deep that he talked to the king about everything.
Yeah, so Morgoth tries at first to daunt Húrin with his eyes, but, Húrin doesn't budge. You could look at me all you want, bro.
Yeah, staring contests.
And so Húrin is put into change and put to slow torment.
Yeah, they just chain his ass up, put him to torment. After some torture, he is made an initial offer. It's like a deal or no deal, right?
Deal or
Yeah.
no deal.
Yeah, it's just like, do you take the deal or do you get more torture? Húrin, he takes more torture, honestly. But the choice is betray the Eldar and become Morgoth's greatest captain, or simply go free. It doesn't matter as long as he spills his guts about Gondolin.
Becoming Morgoth's greatest captain. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, you take that deal, you stupid.
No, Húrin's not stupid.
Yeah, he knows making deals with Morgoth is always a bad decision, unlike Sam Adams, which is always a good decision.
Oh,
Right.
my.
Remember that the commercial? But yeah, he decides to just mock Morgoth through his fucking face instead. We got a really fun excerpt here from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 3, The Words of Húrin and Morgoth.
But Húrin the Steadfast mocked him, saying, Blind you are, Morgoth Bauglir, and blind shall you ever be, seeing only the dark. You know not what rules the hearts of men, and if you knew, you could not give it. But a fool is he who accepts what Morgoth offers. You will take first the price, and then withhold the promise, and I should get only death if I told you what you ask.
Yeah, not budging. Húrin is like, fuck you, dude.
He knows better.
Yeah, I know better than make a deal with you, dummy.
But does he really, though? Because, I mean, with what happens next,
Yeah.
it's still pretty bad for him.
This is sort of the clinching point,
This is what they this is the linchpin moment. I think that's the term you were looking for. This is what sets up the rest of the story here, guys. And ironically, it is one of the things that we covered in our Doom trilogy, right?
Yes, go check that out.
Go check out that Doom trilogy from a long time ago. We do an entire episode. Episode 3 of the Doom trilogy is curses. And we talk about this quite a bit. Morgoth's curse. Cursing Húrin. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Though after Húrin mocks Morgoth, Morgoth brings Húrin to the Hill of the Slain, which is literally an enormous hill
Of corpses.
made of corpses from the battle that the Nirnaeth Nordiad that just ended.
Yep.
It's like, look at all these
Still
wonderful dead people from Dorloman here.
Some good art.
Yeah.
And he tells them to look west toward Dorloman. And Morgoth says that he rules that realm now and has the power to make all of them his slaves. He's just like giving Húrin the shit.
Yeah, and then Húrin tells Morgoth straight up that he won't be able to get at Turgon through his family, no matter what.
Yeah, so what's with your threats, man?
Morgoth says, fucking bet. And this is what he does. He'll come at Húrin and his house, and he will curse them all for fucking ever. And here's a little quote from the Children of Húrin, Chapter 3, Words of Húrin and Morgoth, read by Trev.
Then wrath mastered Morgoth, and he said, Yet I may come at you, and all your accursed house, and you shall be broken on my will, though you were all made of steel. And he took up a long sword that lay there and broke it before the eyes of Húrin, and a splinter wounded his face, but Húrin did not blench. Then Morgoth, stretching out his long arm towards Dorloman, cursed Húrin and Morwen and their offspring, saying, Behold, the shadow of my thoughts shall lie upon them wherever they go, and my hate shall pursue them to the ends of the world.
Very foreboding.
Super villain.
Yeah.
He is a super villain.
He is a supervillain. He is the superest of the supervillains, some might say. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave you guys. That's pretty much a whole episode setting up this story to begin. And we had a few sad things along the way, but oh, my friends, how it gets so much sadder.
Oh, this is just the beginning. We have only just now gotten to the curse itself.
Which is how everything unfolds from the curse. So the story can start now.
Yeah, the story can start now. Now we've talked about the main characters, Húrin and his children, Túrin, and now we can get into it.
Yeah.
We've even gotten the curse out of the way. Now we know what happens here.
So, yeah, that's it for this week. But next week, we're getting into it, guys, and we're going to keep getting into it until we've had a fucking enough. But let's get into some final thoughts for this first part on the Túrin, or on the Children of Húrin episode. So, thing that I want to say, Túrin had a shitty childhood, yes. But I think that was in no small part to the fact that his parents kind of suck, right?
And kind of suck at parenting, yeah.
Yeah, they don't suck as people. Like they're being a good parent and a good person is probably not mutually exclusive, right? But yeah, his parents kind of suck. His father's always gone. His mother is emotionally withdrawn. And you better believe that we will see how this upbringing plays into how Túrin reacts to other shitty situations later in the story. Like, you can almost guarantee he's either going to react like Húrin would react or how Morwen would react. And it's not always consistent of how he reacts. So it's like he gets himself into a lot of problems because this is how he's raised. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot for him to deal with and react to because, things weren't too great to start and they are getting dark fast.
Yes.
Bad things are happening now, and just now they're going to happen at a much more accelerated rate and to an insane extent.
Here we go, guys. Yeah, and the scene where Morgoth curses Húrin is so dramatic and terrifying. Like this, like I said, this is a whole novel we got to cover. So like we couldn't really super get into it. So go back and read that because it is fucking awesome. Honestly, if there's anything you take away from these episodes, read the Children of Húrin. It's my favorite Tolkien novel, I think, in my adult life, and it's great. Check it out.
So one thing I want to say is I'm super happy to be a part of the whole story this time.
Yes.
For anybody who knows Trevor lore from back in the day when these first were done, I was on like the first episode of this, but I didn't get to continue on with the rest of it.
Yeah, we did 11 and 12 were Turin episodes, and you were on 11, but not 12. And that was not through our decision. It was out of our control, but it kind of sucked that you weren't there for the second part of the story.
Yeah. So make sure you're here next time we record.
Yeah,
Okay.
please be here.
Yeah, please be here.
A justice is being done today, guys. Is that we're adding Trevor.
Correcting a wrong of the past.
Next time, we will be righting a wrong.
Right.
So make sure you tune in for that next time.
So yeah, next week, episode 106, the 6th part of our 100th episode series. But yeah. Thanks for listening to KOT Podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on new episodes. And also, please rate us or give us a nice review. That would be super sick. We love reading those so much. Also, check out our new website. Trev's working hard on it. He's cool.
Thanks.
He's really cool. You check out the website, keepontolkien.com. I know we shoot a bunch of links here at you at the end, but everything that we say can also be found at the hub that is all things KOT, keepontolkien.com. Simple.
Another big thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Subscribing on Patreon can unlock some exclusive content, so go there and subscribe to help support us. You can find us at patreon.com/KOT podcast. And we also accept private one-time donations if that's more of your speed. I know sometimes subscription
You just can't
services
afford it,
are a lot for some folks.
Yeah.
So we have other payment services. Just contact us on your favorite social media. We're willing to accept anything you'd like to offer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we love you so much. Thank you for everything you do.
Speaking of social media, you should probably follow us on those if you haven't already. Definitely check out our Discord. We'll have a link in the description. That is, as we always say, the place where we are most active. And
yes,
we've got lots of threads in there, people posting
it's
nearly every day.
Literally every day. Yeah, like I mean, I can't think of like the last day I hadn't seen something go up. Posted
exactly,
in there. Yeah. And we got a lot of cool folks from all over the world there too. If you want to make some friends that are like-minded and also think that this bullshit is funny or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, heck, if you want to ask us questions, we've got specific channels for that.
Yeah,
so if you've got some lore-bending stuff you want to think about or talk about, hit us up there.
We got a Tolkieneering channel. We got a Tolkien art channel. All kinds of fun stuff. Naughty Tolkien memes. That's another channel, right? All kinds of fun stuff.
But, if for some reason you're not a Discorder or you just want even more.
Keep on Tolkien.
You can find us on TikTok at keep_on_Tolkien_podcast. We are also on X, formerly Twitter, at KOT Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at official Keep On Tolkien and Instagram at Keep On Tolkien Podcast. We also have a merch store. It is a mouthful to say, so here we go. keep-on-tolkien-podcast.tmail.com. That should be a wrap. But if you don't want to memorize that, just go to keepontolkien.com. As we said, hub for everything. Find us there.
That's right, guys. That is all from Keep On Tolkien for this week. I'm Danny J.
I'm Joel N.
I am Trevor D.
And together we are
Keep On Tolkien.
Trevor, since you weren't here for the first time, I would like you to take the inaugural Aure in Tulava. I know.
My heart.
I know. Do
This
it,
is a big moment.
Day will come again. It has come again.
It will come again. I believe it.
Aure in Tulava.
Part one, guys.
Here we go. We're balls deep into this now.
We're balls deep in sadness.
I don't know if my balls can go deeper.
I don't know if my balls can get sadder.